In this video, I'll try to explain to you the main idea of Fede Alvarez underlying the film Alien Romulus and tell you about the hidden meta-narrative of the film. Most of the film takes place on a space research station Renaissance.
Welcome to the Renaissance Space Station, the center of Weyland-Yutani research and development.
The huge structure was created by Weyland-Yutani in order to accelerate and consolidate human dominance in space. The station is divided into two equal-sized modules, Remus and Romulus. They are clearly separated logistically, but thematically there are differences too. Judging by this frame from the film, Remus's functionality was launched in 2112, which chronologically is somewhere after the events of the film Alien Covenant. The Romulus module was added later, in the year 31 after the events of the first Alien. Remus is more archaic structure, dark, unfriendly, with narrow tunnels and aggressive design. Staying here doesn't allow our heroes to relax, even before the appearance of the xenomorph, and sometimes causes attacks of disgust and claustrophobia in the audience.
This place gives me the creeps.
On the other side of the Renaissance there's module Romulus, definitely the more modernized part of it. Bright, spacious and inspiring a sense of security. While Remus is stylistically reminiscent of the Nostromo from the first Alien, Romulus's interiors are closer to those of Hadley's Hope from the sequel. The first module refers to Ridley Scott's film, the second to James Cameron's Aliens. Of course, the differences are visible not only in the interiors, but for example in the behavior of the xenomorphs and android Andy. In the interiors of Remus we will meet only one alien, survivable, hiding, intelligent, who prefers not frontal mindless attacks but camouflage, cunning and hunting his victims.
Fucking thing's hunting us.
Agreed, these xenomorphs is more frightening than what we will see on the Romulus module, but I want to draw your attention to the fact that he's not the only source of fear. The atmosphere itself, the synthetics, and of course the numerous scenes of reproduction are frightening. Well, how can one not pay attention to the abundance of sexual subtext, which was more typical of Ridley Scott's Alien?
Right, you're not a virgin anymore.
With the change of location, a lot changes. The alien as a hunter and source of horror is left behind. The concept switches. It's time for action.
Right. New plan.
Can you manage yourself with the gun?
Yes, I fucking can.
From this point on, horror and suspense give way to drive. A hive appears, which more likely hints to us that there is a queen somewhere in its depths. There are more xenomorphs and their mental abilities are sharply reduced. The main character here is less susceptible to fear, partially transforming herself into an action film star, while the android puts aside the interests of the company and comes to her defense, thereby also copying the alien's trope. All this was personally confirmed by Fede Alvarez, who directly stated that he was looking for a way to please fans of both camps. Considering the above, it's easy to guess why these two modules are combined into a single system called Renaissance. This is the name of one of the most crucial eras in the history of Europe, which had a huge impact on culture, science, philosophy and many other areas of life. Just like Alien and Aliens had an incredible impact on our pop culture and subsequently became an inspiration for a huge number of authors. Let's now fast forward for a moment to the very beginning of the film, in which the Weyland-Yutani autonomous space probe reaches the wreckage of the Nostromo. There he discovers a mysterious black stone and delivers it to a space station unknown to us at the moment. Here, surrounded by a group of people, the object is cut in two, revealing a xenomorph curled up inside it. There is not a single line of dialogue and no voiceover. There are no characters as such here, there either, because all the human figures in the frame are absolutely impersonal. In the center of all the action is black mysterious monolith, next to which there is a red eye generating a cutting laser, on the body of which is mounted a small video camera that records the entire process. And of course, all this action is accompanied by frightening ominous music. All this brings us together to 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott's favorite film, without which perhaps there would have been neither Alien nor its prequels many years later. A Space Odyssey raises a huge number of topics, but the main one, which combines all the others, concerns the evolution of humanity. This is the first thing to come to mind when we see references to the Odyssey. So we can safely assume that Alien Romulus isn't only a collection of references, because the chronology of the development of the franchise is clearly traced here, in the evolution of the alien ideas, plot moves, changes in the tone of the narrative, characters, the behavior of the android Andy, and of course in the arc of the main character, which we will talk about later. At the entrance we were greeted by an emblem depicting the she-wolf and two babies, whose names are Remus and Romulus. These are the legendary twin brothers who were thrown out immediately after birth by their grandfather Kin, in order to ensure his continued stay on the throne. They were found and rescued by a predator on the river bank. A wild she-wolf who nursed them and, along with milk, gave them strength to stand on their feet and establish their own community, which would later be called Rom. But this is by no means a story with a happy ending. The brothers could not reach a consensus regarding the division of power. Each of them claimed that the favor of the gods was on their side, which is why the conflict broke out and Romulus killed Remus. This is one of the most famous legends of Roman mythology. It's about the creation of the capital of the future powerful empire, which is based on the personal tragedy of two siblings. How can we not remember the fact that all the main characters of the film are connected by family ties? Tyler and Kai are siblings by blood. Rain and Andy are surrogates. Bjorn and Navarro are step-siblings. At the same time, Bjorn is Tyler and Kai's cousin.
I'm sorry, listen, I know my cousin can be a dick sometimes, right? But he's right.
Fede Alvarez clearly presents us with different combinations of siblings for a reason, and wants us to complement this by viewing the two modules of the Renaissance space station as relatives, who are related by a common family tree, but who have a fundamentally different vision of the future. The struggle for power is the famous myth leads to the murder of one of the brothers. Romulus killed Remus. Cameron's Aliens killed Ridley Scott's Alien, because the concepts of these two films are incompatible with each other on a fundamental level, and in the end there should be only one winner for the minds of the mass audience. In 2016, Fede Alvarez directed an excellent thriller called Don't Breathe. The main character of the film, Rocky, lives a lousy life in a small trailer in Detroit and dreams of moving to California with her younger sister, but doesn't have the financial means to do so. Her only chance to escape is to break into the house of a blind Iraq War veteran with her friends in order to get some money. For Rocky, this place becomes the embodiment of her fears of imprisonment in a cursed city, a rotten prison from which it is impossible to escape. 8 years later, Alien Romulus was born. It's about a girl named Rain, who was born and raised in a colony of Jackson Star, 65 light years from planet Earth. Here she also feels like a canary in a cage and doesn't choose such a life, doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of her father, who devoted himself himself entirely to working for Weyland-Yutani. And after his death, he left only an old android who clearly cannot cope with the mission entrusted to him and can only support Rain with the stupid jokes. Rain gets a chance to escape this trap, to get into abandoned space station and get cryocapsules in order to reach paradise. This is how the name of the Yuvaga system is translated. The similarity between these two stories is obvious, and there is a simple explanation. Part of me connected with them, having grown up in Uruguay, in very small country, very away from everything, where you never think you'll do anything but do what your parents did, if you're lucky. The story of Rocky, Rain and Fede Alvarez is identical at its core. There's no doubt the story of his characters is his story. Acquaintance with the main character of Romulus came from her dreams, in which she sits surrounded by primeval nature with her eyes closed and enjoys the warmth of the first rays of the rising sun. The symbolism of the sun was also borrowed from A Space Odyssey. In science fiction, the sun often symbolizes a person's conscious behavior, and the opposite weather conditions, such as darkness or rain, symbolize unconscious behavior. Here, the name of the main character speaks for itself. The girl had never seen the sun in her life, since she was born and lived her entire life on a harsh planet with unfavorable living conditions, polluted air, eternal dampness, and feeling of total hopelessness. Here you're doomed to run in circles and follow the footsteps of your parents, working in a mine all your short life. In addition, this is a place where aggression, lust, gambling, and other base bodily sins flourish. She wants to be far away from this place, surrounded by wildlife, outside the jurisdiction of the Weyland-Yutani company. But to do this, she will have to overcome her fears and habits and make her way to an abandoned space station, visiting first the Remus module and then Romulus. Fede Alvarez, as writer and director, has no choice but to first return to the Renaissance for inspiration and take the best of two largely different concepts, alien and aliens. The key to this place is Android Andy with all firmware. It was thanks to him, as the once authoritative executor of the will of the corporation, that all these people gained access here.
MD 255 artificial person. Your model was once the backbone of our colonization efforts.
Most of the time that Rain is at this station, she's dependent on this android, and he, in turn, is concerned with the interests of Weyland-Yutani. He supplies his companion with information, guides her through industrial labyrinths, arms, protects, and sometimes even makes key decisions for her, not allowing to act emotionally. Emotions here are equivalent to death. Director Fede Alvarez creating a film within the cult franchise is extremely limited. He simply must obey and follow corporate guidelines, and especially the instruction of one android who clearly needs updating. But if you go through this nightmare and suppress your emotions, you can get your hands on a resource that will ultimately allow you to gain much greater freedom and finally bury this page of history for yourself. The studio boss's motives are obvious. Any company on the free market wants to make money and expand its empire as far as possible. She was lucky with the xenomorph. The monster became recognizable all over the world and brought incredible income. But there are always ups and downs. After the release of Alien Covenant, it becomes obvious that the elixir of youth would come in handy more than ever. New blood is needed, other screenwriters, young directors and actors. A lot of big themes of the movie are about siblinghood, and what does that mean? The Romulus of it all, and the bigger plot with Weyland-Yutani is actually connected to that as well. As stated earlier, all the threads of Romulus ultimately tie back to the theme of siblings. Of course, the emphasis was shifted from blood kinship to psychological and spiritual, empathy, equality, and love. Rain was always been attached to Andy, but this connection is difficult to call balanced and genuine.
I have just one directive. To do what's best for Rain.
The sister drives away the hooligans and reprimands her brother when he wants to gamble in order to buy a horse in the future and name it as part of the two of them. But he doesn't know that Rain is not completely honest with the synthetic and intended to first use her brother to infiltrate Renaissance and then abandon him somewhere halfway to Uwaga. This is destined to change. Having gone through a chain of events, their relationship first turns 180 degrees and then balances.
Eddie, I have a new directive for you. Do what's best for us.
By the end of the film, Rain and Andy's relationship evolves and strengthens. The same things happens with Remus and Romulus. That is the lure of the alien and aliens. Yes, it's not done perfectly, but isn't that what true siblings relationships are all about? In accepting each other as they are. And of course, director Fede Alvarez and the interests of those behind the production come to understanding. Ideally, studio bosses will take into account the director's individual vision, just as the director will sacrifice some freedom for the sake of profitability of the project and the satisfaction of the fan community. How will the story continue? I'm not sure even the film's director knows the answer to this question.
But whatever comes, I'll face it.